rotating to the hip.
New runner.
We are on. All right, cool. Hey guys, we are just going live right now. I see participants are just clicking in, so we're gonna give a few minutes, and actually we're gonna start while we're waiting for people to log in. We're gonna start with probably one of the most pressing questions in our COVID times, which is, where do you stand on the Tiger King? It is a polarizing issue, and I think it's one of those hard-hitting topics that we need to start something like this with. So I'm going to start with Nick Hawks. Where do you stand on the Tiger King?
I would say don't waste your time, but Carol Baskin did it.
Oh, okay. All right. Nicole?
I still haven't watched it yet, so I don't know what that says about me, but I plan on watching it, and when I do, I will definitely vocalize my opinion.
You're fighting a good fight, Nicole. Tito Marini?
It's like a 5.5. Like, I was forced into it, and I was like, it was almost like pulling teeth every single night, but I just had to finish it to say that I'd finished it. But there's plenty other shows that you could watch.
Yeah, not to reveal too much, but I have the same feeling. I was forced into Too Hot to Handle, and
I started that terrible.
And we treated that thing like a Ben and Jerry's pint. Like, wait, we can't have that in the house tomorrow, so you better race through it. So, like, Courtney and I just sat and watched too many episodes so that we didn't have to endure it any longer. Yeah. All right, Jared, Tiger King, where do you stand?
I have now watched it. Tamara, my fiance's watched it, and she's begging me to watch it, but I have not watched it, and I do not plan on watching it.
Ooh, Jared and Nicole, both strong.
I love it, Jared.
Trav?
Yeah, I watched the first episode, and I refuse to watch the rest.
Okay. Hunter?
Travis, I did the same thing. I watched the first one, and me and Anna were like, oh, I don't like this. I feel bad for the Tigers. And then everyone's like, you got to watch it. So everyone else needs to go waste their time.
Oh, Hunter.
Did anybody else lose Hunter?
Hunter's Wi-Fi.
My internet bad again?
Yeah.
It's only when I talk.
It's because he's posted up in a
I
garage.
have no issues until I talk.
Go in your house.
Well, Anna's working inside, so I'm gonna move closer, but internet's fine when I'm not talking.
You're doing great, Hunter. All right, guys, we have looks like we're starting to get we're still climbing. We're with our participants, but we're over the 100 mark. So let's start to dig in, because we've got a lot of really good questions. I want to make sure that we have time to get to these questions. So let's start by just going around the horn and introducing yourself. We'll talk about you, and just so people get to know you a little bit, tell us, aside from Tiger King, what is the best thing that you've watched since the COVID quarantine? So I will start. I'm CJ Martin. I am the founder of Invictus Fitness. I get to oversee directly Invictus Engine, and otherwise just support all the other programs right now. I've been coaching for, a long time, since 2007. And I would say the best movie or series that I've watched since COVID, I just started Narcos. I watched the first season of Narcos and really enjoyed that. All right, so Nick, why don't you go next?
My name is Nick Hawks. I oversee the Invictus mobility training, or mind muscle program. I've been coaching since 2005 or 6, 2005, a long time, like an original founding coach for Invictus. And I haven't spent a lot of time watching TV. If I watch anything in my downtime, if it's not like training related, it's with jiu-jitsu. So make my way through the John Danaher series. for when schools open back up.
Very cool. Nicole?
I've been coaching. I was trying to figure it out. I think since 2003, 2004, and then been with Invictus for 10 or 11 years, which has been awesome. And I am currently watching Parks and Rec, started from season 1. I'm in season 5. I'm going out on a limb and I'm saying it. I like it more than The Office. I said it. There.
Ooh, wow. That's a big stance.
Wow. All right, Tino.
Hi, I'm Tito Marini. I oversee the competition and athlete program and also run our in-house athlete program when the guys are in the gym. I've been a part of Invictus since 2010, started off as an online client and then eventually went into online coaching 2012, I think it was. And yeah, been there ever since. Recent shows, I've just started watching Dave. So Dave is Little Dicky. Little Dicky is a rapper, and it's actually really funny. It's really, really funny. So if you have, and the episodes aren't too long, so like 20-minute episodes, but it's really, really good. So yeah, Dave, who's Little Dicky, definite one to go to.
All right, Jared.
Hey, I'm Jared Enterton. I run Invictus Weightlifting. I've been running it for about 2.5, almost 3 years now. Been coaching weightlifting for about 10 years, online, in person, doing seminars at the gym, things like that as well. Yeah, and then favorite show I've watched would be Ozark since the quarantine. And I'm not finished though. I'm only through season 2. And then favorite movie, I'm very late to the party, many years, but by far the best show or movie, The Usual Suspects.
Yeah, that's a good movie.
Yeah.
Ozark is brilliant. I love Ozark.
Yeah, that one's awesome. My favorite show is Breaking Bad, so I'm feeling like it's taken a similar route so far.
Right, yeah. Neither are very uplifting, Jared.
No, they're not. Not a lot of positive coming from me.
Not a lot of positive. All right, Trev.
My name's Travis Ewart. I run the Invictus Gymnastics Program. I've been coaching gymnastics since 1996. Worked at Invictus since September of 2015, and the online program's been about getting close to 3.5 years. So that's pretty good. As far as shows go, I've watched everything under the moon on Netflix. I actually ran out of Netflix and switched over to Amazon Prime. I could only talk about genres because everything's kind of a blur these days, but I would like to say that anything old school Renaissance or a little bit sci-fi, anything in the mix there. Right now I'm watching Medici. Are you guys watching this?
No.
Sadly, no, Travis.
No. I don't know. I like anything that's like sword fighting and murdering. I think is pretty good. Is there something else?
Hunter.
No, all right. Hey guys, I am Hunter Britt. I oversee the 8-week strength program, and I assist Tino on whatever he needs for the athlete program. I started coaching about 8 years ago, around there, and I got to Invictus in 2015. So it's been 5.5 years or so since I got to Invictus. And then overall during this COVID, I haven't really found any good shows to watch besides Tiger King. So we've been looking up a bunch of old like game shows on YouTube. So like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, like 1999 and stuff. So that's actually been really fun. And it shows I'm even worse, back then. So when I only knew like 2 answers for current episodes, I'm lucky if I know something now.
Nice. All right, guys. So let's get into some of the questions.
Awesome.
We had some great questions that were submitted. So Ivan Harris Photography asked, what are you guys doing to stay sane amidst the COVID-related shutdowns? And I'm going to add on to that, what's the silver lining or the biggest source of joy that you've found during this time? So Hunter, why don't you start us off?
The best thing has been time with time with my wife, Anna. Normally she's always at work for 9 hours a day at least. And so I don't see her all day, but now I'm with her all the time. She's just in the other room. So that's been the best part for me.
Nice. Trav?
Hunter, that's so sweet. We love to hear that. For me, to stay sane, we've had amazing weather in San Diego. So I've been running, just going out, hitting trails, road running. I don't know, I took up a couple hobbies. I just bought a compound bow. I learned how to throw knives. Just whatever, reading.
So you're training for the apocalypse.
Just in case. Yes, just in case shit happens.
Cool. You got that nailed. Tino, how about you, buddy?
Hanging out with the family, and that's been really, really cool. I mean, the boys, we're very, I think I can speak for all of us that we're all fortunate that the majority of the work that we do is online. So that's been still super busy. So being fortunate that we can work from home and then have a great yard outside, hanging out with the boys, getting to go on walks with them. We've got some great walks up in where we live. But yeah, we're just fortunate that we've been able to continue our lives pretty normal, and I've got some extra time with the boys and extra time to kind of focus on online programs in the community.
Very cool.
Are you still doing the 4 a.m. workouts?
Still doing the 4 a.m. workouts. I've had 2 challenges so far. So 3 actually. So I beat Jorge. I'm technically the fittest man on the internet because I beat Jorge and I won like $100, $200. And then I've done another challenge that I'm finishing up as well. So it's been fun doing these, but yeah, it's still the 4 a.m. sessions. The boys still get up at the same time, Hunter. You'll find that out soon. Their schedule doesn't change.
No, I got a while.
It's true. That is true. Jared, how about you?
Yeah, I think to stay sane, I've done a better job at just creating a schedule just from being home all day, just trying to create some sort of regular things that I'm doing, whether that's work or working out. And the biggest thing, just thinking about it, is my golf game has definitely improved a lot in the last month. I've been golfing almost every day for about a month. So I've been out on the links walking. They just allowed us to be able to use the cart. But yeah, I've been golfing a lot. We've been looking on the property, trying to build like a little par 3 course. So going to Home Depot, trying to figure out what I need for that. Cleaned out the garage. So a lot of stuff around the house, but mainly just trying to get a regular schedule to stay sane, and then just making sure my golf game stays sharp for whatever reason.
Amazing. Nicholas?
I think all of us have been a little bit busier than I would be normally. I feel like just taking care of all the extra effort we're doing to put into our clients. But it's also given me some time to work on my house. I have a huge, over half acre that's been all weeds. Call it Hawks Landing, but it's really Hawks Jungle. And I was able to start doing a bunch of projects back there. And I actually set up an archery range, Trav. So I got the straw bales set up in the backyard. So if you want to come over, brother, come on over.
Yeah, 100%, man. Sweet.
Nice. All right, Nicole.
Staying sane, I've been going out on a lot of runs, which is great. And living in the Pacific Northwest, you don't always get the benefit of having the sun out. And so just getting used to running in the rain, being outside, it's actually been great and I love it. And so that's been an unexpected surprise. I've really enjoyed being out and running, and yeah, just trying to create really good structure. I think that's everybody probably who's at home, just creating really good structure to stay sane and have a good routine.
Awesome. All right. Let's jump into some of the questions. We'll kind of bounce back and forth between the Q&A and the ones that were submitted beforehand. But Miriam asked in the Q&A, how will COVID affect our operations online and offline? So Nick, you want to talk about that a little bit in terms of the in-house stuff?
About how we're going to operate?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're doing everything we can to keep everything safe. And we had a big meeting yesterday with our team about what our practices are going to be as far as setting up safe spaces for people, operations with people coming into the gym, making sure people feel safe and supported when they come in. And then we'll gradually start working people back up into like, is this economy starts opening back up and the restrictions are lifted and people are coming into the gym more frequently, we'll start ramping up the intensity and modifying the programming to make sure everyone kind of smooths the skids as they start coming back in.
Yeah, I think important to note also, one of the things that we felt blessed is that all of our members of our physical locations have an assigned coach. So those guys have been able to receive coaching throughout. Our coaches have done a phenomenal job in terms of outreach and of course with the Zoom classes and all of that. So that's a big change in terms of our coaches are doing a lot more, email correspondence, phone calls, FaceTimes with our regular gym members. Online, Tino, have you noticed any effect on the way we run things online?
A lot more organized, a lot more time, a lot more time to kind of make adjustments. Obviously, now with everyone having different situations and access to different equipment, I think I can speak for us all. It meant that we're having to change a lot of programs, a lot more. It was kind of like everyone was injured. So it was like having to make those adaptations, which for me, I always tell people, I'm like, I'm really sorry that you're injured, but it makes my life really fun because it allows me to get creative. So it's actually been challenging in a fun way because it's like using different implements, and if people only have access to water jugs or they don't have any equipment whatsoever, like it's kept me personally on my toes. And it's also, there's been a lot more interaction, and honestly across the board, for those who have had access to a decent amount of equipment, they've been training really, really well because they're not focusing on anything else, because they're training, they're sleeping well, and they're eating well. So like, I don't know if you guys have seen this as well, but our programs, especially this cycle, since we started up this cycle, like I've seen a bunch of PRs already and we're like 3 weeks in, and even towards the end there. And I think people are just slowing down, like, and the fact they're slowing down, or they're able to dial in things that they can control just now, like their training and nutrition.
Very cool. Awesome. All right. Well, we had a submitted question. I think Ruba Garcia on Instagram said, when quarantine is over, how do we transition back to normal training? So I'll field this one because I actually wrote an article on this that we have not yet posted because we're waiting for people to get a little closer to being back in the gyms, at least in California. We're not there yet. But something that's going to be really important to understand is what your training has looked like and what you're coming into. So for example, if you haven't been able to train very often, which is probably unlikely with a motivated group that's watching this, but if you haven't been able to train, you're not going to jump in on day one and go 100%. In fact, what I would suggest is about a 2-week ramp where you're taking that first day at 75%. You're just starting to move. You're adding a little bit of effort and intensity each time you work out. And by the end of a 2-week run, you're going to feel great and you're going to know that you don't need any regulators, right? Equally important is that we have a lot of people that are working out 5, 6, 7 days. I know for some people, myself included, this has actually given us more opportunity to work out, but the style of workout might be really different. So for example, if you've been using light dumbbells, doing a lot of running, push-ups, body weight stuff, do not go back in the gym and put 95% on your back in a back squat and think that that's going to feel okay, right? You need the exact same 2-week ramp up where you're starting to feel load, allow your body to adapt to that before you rush into really high intensity work. Oh, anybody have anything to add on that?
Yeah, I went into the gym just the other day. I snuck in and just swung from the rings for about 1 minute straight, and I felt it the next day. So like just taking the concept of having put myself through muscle up for so long, and then taking such a break from swinging or even hanging and kipping, like you feel it. Take it easy because starting small will just kind of like re-plump those those muscles and the feeling while you're hanging from the rings, or the bar, I'm sure is for the matter. Yeah, like I experienced that just earlier this week. And so I would highly recommend that, yeah, they take it super, super slow and then just kind of work up to it. Everything is going to come back, but your body has to be ready for it.
Awesome. All right. Let's get into the next one. So Peter Fowl on Instagram asked, how should an athlete look to progress from standard CrossFit classes into competitive training? Either the competition program or Invictus Athlete, in terms of both capacity and skill, what should they be looking for? Hunter, why don't you start this? Tino, kind of take a shot at it too.
Ultimately it just comes down to what you want to do. So if competition is something you're interested in, kind of ramping it up slowly, similar to what we were talking about with just getting back, into the gym normal. Kind of see what volume you've been doing. If you're kind of on the lower volume side, doing just a 60-minute class a day, maybe start with the competition program, which is going to be a little higher skill, slightly higher weights, but not a huge difference in volume. And, if you feel great and you're like, okay, I'm ready to handle more, maybe go up to that next part as well. But everything's just needs to be a slow progression and enjoyable. So jumping all in, doing 2 sessions a day or something to start competing, because that's what those CrossFit Games athletes do most of the time, might not be the right choice to do right at the beginning.
Yeah, and also at the very beginning, like, get access to as many good coaches as you can, like join as many classes as you can, get as much one-on-one time with like the people in your gym, experienced athletes, because you're only going to learn from them. A lot of people, like, because we do online programs, they end up jumping into a program with barely any experience. And I'm like, hey, like, we'd love to have you on the program, but like, go and spend some time in classes, go and spend some time in gymnastics classes, weightlifting classes, seek out all these experts that you have access to so you can get one-on-one attention. Because if you lay down those foundations at the start, it's going to make your life and progress so much faster. You're going to stay healthier for longer. Yeah, so like at the very beginning, like, lay those foundations. Don't think that you have to go like gung-ho and like dive straight in and go, like Hunter said, go into 2 sessions. Like, lay down those foundations, do the simple things well, and you'll make progress, and then climb the ladder, whether that be performance, into competition, into athlete, into doing double sessions, into games training. But yeah, don't rush.
Yeah, and to be honest, if you look at it, you've got, our belief in those foundational elements, right? Gymnastics, weightlifting, strength development, engine, mind, muscle, mobility. Like, so we created programs for all of the deficit areas that we see that keep people from full expression of their athletic potential, right? And that's why we offer those programs, so that if you know that you're lagging in an area, there's an opportunity to build the fundamental base before you try to mix it all together. Because at the end of the day, that's what competitive CrossFit is you're expected to be able to do everything really well. So we've tried to kind of strategically put programs in place to help people develop in areas of weakness and allow them to get to that stage a little bit quicker. All right, Jared, I'm probably going to butcher the name, but Eustachio1974 on Instagram asks, what is the best drill to help stop jumping forward during your snatch and clean and jerk?
Yeah, that's a great question. It can be technique or it can just be habit. My favorite thing from a coaching perspective is to have an athlete put a mat in front of their feet, like a small little stall mat, maybe 2 or 3 inches wide, 2 feet long, because it's going to give your body instant feedback if you're jumping forward, and it's safe. So if you might kick it forward, or one of your toes might land on it, but it's still safe to where you can still miss, get it out of the way. Like, you don't want some big object in front of you. And that's what I do first, is just get them in front of a mat, something to where their body, if you kick it, the next rep, your body remembers that. And you're like, okay, now I got to move my feet straight to the sides. And then from there, it's mostly technique. Your hips might be moving straight out to the bar. So the bar's kicking away, and then you're chasing the bar more forward. So then that's when you start to look at your hip intention, whether your hips are going out or whether they're actually going up and setting the barbell up. Some simple things you can do just to get the feeling of it. If you're looking for a few drills, I mean, that's number one is the mat. Number two, a snatch balance, a drop snatch, snatch without moving feet. Like those are all really good exercises to get you comfortable with what your feet are doing, where they're at, and just giving you more awareness and feel throughout both lifts.
Awesome. Yeah. I would say that anytime I see jumping forward, almost always it's hips driving horizontal and knocking that bar, and they're chasing after it, right?
Yeah.
Very cool. Travis, how can somebody practice handstand push-ups during these times?
It depends on where they are on the handstand push-ups, I think. If you can safely do handstand push-ups, all it takes is a wall, right? You can throw a pillow on the floor. But if you do not have a handstand push-up yet, my recommendation would be make sure that you can get upside down against the wall safely. And also put yourself in a headstand position often without extra load. So one of the things that we're mostly concerned about when people are doing their handstand push-ups is muscle failure and then dropping and having a neck injury. So just putting somebody in the position where they can do a headstand up against the wall for time and be able to come down, say 20 seconds, 10 seconds, 20 seconds, take some rest, get back upside down. And then what that's doing is it's strengthening all the stabilizing muscles in your neck. It's getting you used to having that head position against the floor, whereas a lot of athletes like to look down at the floor while they're doing their handstand push-up, especially when they're learning it. And that's a bad habit to get into because then your neck can squish this way. So I would say holding handstands up against the wall, finding comfort in the headstand position, learning that over time, and then also just putting yourself through the range of motion safely with negative handstand push-ups. Otherwise, if you're already doing handstand push-ups, then it's slowly building up volume through EMOMs or things of such.
Very cool. Awesome. Great answer. Nicole, let's discuss our Masters athlete. So our Masters athletes had a pretty awesome run at the age group qualifiers. We had 3 first place winners in 3 different age groups on the female side. We had a couple males, about, I guess, 10 or so total qualifiers. Question is, how are you kind of coaching them through the mental side of their season being terminated without that final opportunity to compete live at the CrossFit Games?
They're so awesome, and their attitudes, as far as those who I work with and who I've talked to, they have such a positive attitude, and it was disappointing, but they all understand that this is way bigger and that the decision was made for health and safety for themselves and others. And so I think, processing that first of all, and they all have worked through that. And now just they're focused on next year. And so their goals haven't really changed. It's just the timeline has changed. So instead of it being this year, it's next year. And for some, that means taking a little bit of time off, maybe shoring up some nagging injuries, which, is only going to benefit them. And for others, it means to continue their regular routine and to continue training. They've been really busy because a lot of our masters are also gym owners or coach at gyms. So that's been a really busy aspect that gym owners all over are dealing with right now. And so it's given them a little bit of opportunity to take time to focus on the gym and procedures with everything with COVID. And so they've had their plates pretty full even outside of training, but they have a really, really good perspective on everything.
That's awesome. And just small spoiler alert, there may still be an opportunity for them to compete later this summer or early fall. And we're actively assisting and trying to make sure that happens for them. So, cool. Next question is from Hector for Mr. Nick Hawks. As far as regulating pain management, what are the best ways that we can modify programming if needed? For example, if an athlete's experiencing knee pain at midway through the depth of a back squat, but not the front squat, should we cut the back squats out completely or decrease loading to a manageable load? Other ideas?
Good question. It really depends. It depends on what's causing the pain. Normally pain in the knee is manifesting from some sort of limitation from the up or down the chains for the ankle or the hip. So a lot of times when I have an athlete come in, it will assess the hip and we'll assess the ankle and see what the issue really is. I'm not a big advocate. If there's pain in there, let's figure out what's causing the pain. Like I wouldn't keep pushing through it. So I'd probably take the back squat out until we fix the issue and make you have a better hip, a better ankle, and a better knee. That's going to give you more options to be able to access that specific movement. So if you want more of a posterior chain load and you're not feeling any pain with the deadlift, then go ahead, you can hinge that way. But I'd avoid the back squat if it's causing a pain, especially if there was a trauma, or really if you don't know what's causing the pain. Like the first issue is to like sit down and figure out what's causing it. Is it the limitation up and down the chain, or does your knee not rotate and lock and unlock it like it needs to? So it'd take a better assessment to figure that out.
Awesome. I think that's going to be a common theme with a lot of questions, right? Is that it really depends. And it may be a more nuanced answer than anybody wants. Everybody wants to hear the like, oh, just do this and that'll fix it.
But to elaborate a little bit more on that, I think it also comes down to assessing all the pieces of like the X doesn't normally mark the spot. Just because the pain is manifesting in the knee doesn't mean you have a knee issue. It means it's just manifesting at the knee, and it really has to do some deep work of what else isn't functioning properly.
Yep. Awesome. We're going to take some from the Q&A bar here. Tim Sullivan, who shout out to Tim, has been absolutely crushing gymnastics program. All right, we got some amazing bar muscle up work. He's been absolutely crushing it. He's also been participating in some of the mind muscle sessions. So awesome to see Tim thriving during this. But
he got his ring and bar muscle ups in
awesome.
less than 2 months.
Yeah,
awesome.
Super cool,
Yeah.
Tim. So huge congrats to you on that. Tim's question is, do you have any post-workout rituals you do that help you recover? Tino, you want to take first crack at that?
Any post-workout routines to help you recover? Was that
Yeah.
Well, first and foremost, sleep and nutrition is going to be your bread and butter. Like a lot of athletes need to recover just as hard as they train, and they have to understand that. There's this misconception that you're going to have to train harder to become better, but if you're training harder, you have to recover even better. And I think that's really, really important, because first and foremost, as a coach, my priority is to keep you healthy. And if I can keep you healthy and training consistently, you're always going to make progress. And a lot of people do it the opposite order. So they're like, I need more volume, I need more volume, I need more volume. And they end up broken and beat up, and they're like, I'm doing all this volume and I can't recover. So like they have to make sure the food's dialed in. They have to make sure the sleep's dialed in. They also have to understand that the mental aspect of the sport is huge, especially at the higher end levels. So if you're not able to like mentally reset after hard training days or hard training weeks or hard training cycles, you're not going to make progress there as well. I really, really like, and it's funny, like my son just now is going through this stage where he really likes to do these kids meditations. And I'm a huge fan of meditations. I never do them though. But because he's wanting to do them, it's 5 minutes. So like every night before he goes to bed, we do a 5-minute meditation. It's a kid's meditation. And honestly, like that 5 minutes at the end of the night, for me, even if it's a kid's meditation, is awesome. So it's been one of the kind of like, I knew this, but I need to practice it more. So sleep, nutrition, and then being aware of your mental state and making sure that your brain's also recovering along with your body.
And I'll jump in as well, and just say for to go along with what Tino said, immediately following workouts. Sometimes it can be hard to do some type of post-workout recovery because you're in group classes and you're being, new people are coming in for the next class, but we're all in this really cool opportunity right now to utilize some post-workout recovery and making a routine of it. So spending 5 to 10 minutes after that high intensity training to get that heart rate back down, going on a walk, just walk, stretching with some focused breathing. If you have a heart rate monitor, you can watch that heart rate to go down to whatever desired heart rate you'd like. But spending some conscious time trying to get that heart rate back down before just going into the next thing that you're doing after training.
Yeah, another thing that I've found that I've been doing a lot is like 10-minute walks, especially like because I spend so much time at a computer. I try and make a conscious effort every few hours to go for a 10-minute walk, and not so much for mental sake, but also for physical sake, because I've been a high-level athlete for a number of years, and I've had all these aches and pains, and I've still been training really, really hard. But these 10-minute walks seem to free me up. Like I don't know if it's just like being more aware of my movement, just moving. But for me, that's another game changer. 10-minute walks 2 or 3 times a day, especially if you've got a desk job, especially if you're training hard in the gym 1 or 2 sessions a day and you're sitting down at a desk all day and you're not spending time keeping your body moving, then you're just seizing up and you're kind of fighting a lost cause. So like those 10-minute walks for me have been money. And so that's another thing that I think a lot of people should start incorporating into.
Awesome. All right, Jared. Ileana has asked, says, first of all, you're awesome and badass. Love watching your videos. My question for you is, what goes through your mind when you're about to attempt a PR in a clean or a snatch? What do you do to get yourself in the moment and focused?
Oh, I like that question a lot. I wish, the more experience you get in anything, I personally, at least my experience with weightlifting and CrossFit, is the less I actually think about the movement. So like when I'm going for a PR snatch or clean and jerk, on the great days, I'm already in the zone, I'm ready to go, it's max out day, I'm usually not really thinking anything about technique. Maybe one thing if I'm struggling, or if the last couple reps I felt a little forward, I might think maybe one cue, but that's pretty rare. A lot of times I'm more focused on just cranking up the music and having fun and keeping that positive energy flowing and not stopping that the flow of the session. Because we've all been there before where you're feeling good, you're about ready to PR, and something changes and it kind of throws you off a little bit. So for me, even if something changes, I just want the same energy within my body and my mind to feel good to go up for that attempt. So honestly, it's nothing special. I think a lot of people draw energy and emotion from different areas, meaning positivity. Like, hey, I want to snatch this weight because these, people in my category are snatching this weight, or, I want to do this because this is what I love to do and I want to beat this guy. For me, it's the opposite. I go to a kind of a dark place, so to speak, where I have to think about past things that upset me in order to lift those weights. Like that's usually why at seminars I stop at 300, because usually it's not maximal. Like, so in order to get to that 305, 310, 315, I have to go to a place that like emotionally and physically I can't go to super often, maybe once every 4 to 6 months or something, just for my own mental sanity. So I don't know. I think you just have to find out what you're doing it for, why you're doing it. And when I go after a weight where I know it's a true max, that's all that matters right in that moment. I'm just thinking about having fun and I'm thinking about the bar slam and the dance right afterwards too.
Bernie.
Yeah, the Bernie.
Awesome. All right. Nicole, Alexandria asked, how are you keeping your online clients engaged in the community and motivated with their programming right now?
I love this question because it can be challenging since we're isolated physically, but we've actually, or at least I work particularly with our masters, we've had an awesome time during this COVID, communicating and encouraging each other over we have a Facebook group, a closed Facebook group for just our current masters athletes. And everybody has been so encouraging and pushing each other by posting videos, or, you know, a lot of people aren't able to follow their normal training. And so, you know, providing suggestions for other ways to train, you know, movement substitutions, and creating new exercise equipment with whatever they have. And so sharing that with each other has been awesome and really, really encouraging. And, you know, even just sharing what they've been struggling with or what you're currently struggling with, and then others in the community can jump in and provide suggestions and help and stuff. So I actually feel like communication, motivation has all increased since we've been at home more. So that's been a really, really cool side effect.
Awesome. All right. Hunter, let's have you take this one. It is Becky asks, what motivates each of you to really push, to really go into the dark place of extreme intensity when you're working out at home?
It's tough to work out at home sometimes with high intensity. But it's a similar thing that we talk to our athletes about. Is there's kind of this thought that every single workout needs to be 100% effort and go as hard as you possibly can. Where more I find it easier to, you know, get some nice training in, make it consistent, and then pick 1 or 2 days to be like, this is going to be my day that I push really hard, get that really high intensity. And then when you make that decision, for me at least, I like to make everything of that I don't have a choice. Once I make the decision to try something or do something, you're committed to it. You know, whether it's a barbell that you're lifting or workouts, like I'm pushing this, I'm making these goals, whether it's to end up on the floor, you know, dying after a workout, or I'm going to push as hard as I can to go unbroken. But setting little goals in the workouts, doing it once you make that commitment, and, you know, not doing it all the time. It's mentally challenging to go really hard 5-7 days a week or multiple times in a day if that's something that you're doing. So just pick and choose when you're ready to actually go for it.
I think, can I add to that? I think one of the best athletes in the sport does an amazing job of it, and that's Kristen Halter. And she, I think CJ will probably expand on this, but she'll have a full week of training and she'll know exactly what days that she's going to go hard and exactly what days that she's going to back off. And it's like Hunter said, it's like going in with an intention for that day. There's a misconception that you have to hammer yourself every day to make progress. You have to do it at the right times. And that's why I always say to people, it's like, if you turn up to the gym, you warm up and you feel awesome, and you're working up to a single and it only calls for 85-90%, but you're like, hey, like, I feel absolutely awesome. Like, I want to put more weight in the bar, but my coach is going to moan at me if I go. I'm like, put more weight in the bar. Like now's the time. Like, you don't know how you're going to feel when we actually are supposed to max out. And that goes with workouts as well. It's like, if you see a workout and you're like, I'm just not feeling this today, don't like feel like you have to go in, because you'll end up actually doing more damage to yourself trying to push to that level when your body's not wanting to, than like just backing off and doing some more restorative work. And it's just having that understanding of like, hey, there's a time to push and there's a time to back off. Everything that we write in a program is an option. Like, I'm not going to shout at you if you go to me, hey Tino, like, I felt like shit today, I couldn't do that workout. I'm like, you're an asshole, like, why didn't you do your workout? I'm like, never going to do that, because I know that you did the best for your body. You did the best for what's going to keep you, and also from a mental aspect, if you're going in with that mindset of having to hammer yourself, you're just going to become burnt out. And so, yeah, like Hunter said, go in with an intention based on how you're feeling.
I love that point, Tino, because I'm sure that, like, you know, well, most of the coaches on here, probably Jared a lot, he'll get clients that will be like, sorry, I ended up maxing out. I was only supposed to go to 90%, but I PR'd. It's like, cool, good, do that. If it feels great, do it.
Don't max out the day, though.
You got to strike when the iron's hot. Just go for it.
Yeah.
Within reason, not every day, but.
Awesome. Great answers, guys. All right. Nick, Tino, Nicole, anybody jump in on this? Sean Carey asks, what's the method to the madness towards the nasal breathing aspects that we do in our programs?
Oh, man. Really, it's because we want to make sure that you guys, your respiratory systems is functioning well. Most people who come in, they don't know how to breathe properly, where it turns right into a mouth breath. And so learning actually how your nose is for breathing, your mouth is for eating. So learning how to breathe through your mouth is actually going to help you process oxygen and CO2 a lot better. And it's going to make you a better athlete overall.
Yeah. Tino, you got anything to add to that?
Like outside of like a physiological aspect, I like it because it actually primes you and it makes you focus on the movements that you're doing. So I don't know if you've noticed that when you do nose breathing, you're more aware of the things that you're doing, whether that be a kettlebell swing or rowing or running or even just walking. Like you're way more aware of what your body's doing. So from that, you're basically, we use it as a warm-up piece and also cool down piece, but as a warm-up piece, you're like kind of priming your central nervous system. You're getting your body ready. You're getting everything activated. You're making yourself aware of like what you're about to do. So I really like it from that standpoint now.
It also makes it so you have a natural built-in governor. And so we use it as a warm-up, right, to kind of slow you guys down. So what do we see is a lot of athletes come in, they want to blow it out of the water right away. And by putting that restriction on you, it makes you slow down. And like Tino said, that ties in right to the awareness piece where you guys actually stay present in it, even though it sucks at first. We all know it kind of sucks. Like it's hard to breathe. And my beard, like almost drowned because the sweat comes off my mustache. Like we know it
knots
sucks.
Everywhere.
Yeah, knots everywhere. So, but once you really accept it and dive into it, you'll notice you have a lot more benefits out of it. Especially like you feel your rib cage start to expand. You feel like you can actually draw in breath to the belly. We can go on and on, but just stick with it. It's awesome.
Yeah, our masters have really loved it, especially with learning how to pace and figuring out pacing to be applied in other types of workouts. It's been a huge, huge benefit.
And don't forget the cool down piece with nose breathing is important too.
Yeah.
Recenter you, especially it's like get yourself up. Like if you've done a hard workout, get yourself up off the floor and go for a walk and just nose breathe because it just recenters you again and it helps you actually recover from the workout a lot faster.
For sure.
The breath and the nasal breathing will actually help you tie into your parasympathetic system. So if you're jacked up from a workout, you can start to nasal breathe and that will calm you back down. Same thing, like if you want to start ramping yourself up, you can start nasal breathing until you can't anymore, and then you're ready to go. So it's a good tool to regulate between parasympathetic and sympathetic responses.
And for you guys I'll add one thing. For you guys following the program too, don't worry. The first couple times Tino programmed it for me, I remember the first like 8 or 10 minutes, I was all good. I'm like, yeah, through the nose, but the meathead comes out in you. And I'm like, no, I'm going hard the last 10 minutes. So I go hard. And I remember laying on the ground. I was like, just smoked. This wasn't that long ago, actually. And I remember I was like, wait, let me pull up my phone again for the rest of the programming. And I was like, oh, that was a huge mistake. It was only the warm up. Oh, so I had to take a break and go do the rest of it. But so if you've done that, I've been there too. Don't worry.
I love that story, Jared.
Awesome. And whether you're a coach or an athlete, the Oxygen Advantage by Patrick McKeown, highly recommend reading. It's a great read. All right. Let's see. Got Jared. Elk asks, no matter if snatch or clean, when it's heavy, they revert to a power version. So it says, I've added drop snatches, cleans, and balances to my training. Are there more drills than these to get more confident catching the bar in the squat?
Yeah, this is one of my favorite things to coach athletes on because, like, if I could give the answer in one title, I guess it would be the obstacle is the way. Like, there's no way around it. So, like, athletes who, when it gets heavy, they start to power snatch or power clean. Like, you need to do a front squat or an overhead squat afterwards, because every time you do that, if you just power snatch and stand up, you're only making the problem bigger. like the gap's only widening. So if you accidentally do power snatch it, that's okay. Just do an overhead squat. And then what I have athletes do all the time is pause on every snatch rep for 3 to 5 seconds at the bottom. So even at the empty bar, your first warm-up weight, you're going to catch it. You're going to sit down there for 3 to 5 seconds. The next weight. So let's say you do 10 to 15 warm-up sets. You've just spent several minutes at the bottom, including other warm-ups of the snatch, which maybe you haven't spent that much time in the bottom position in 3 months, but you just did that just in your warm-up, spending more time, giving more care to that bottom position. So that's my favorite thing, is just having athletes pause at the bottom at every single rep, no matter what. And then understanding that's not going to fix it instantly. The mobility does take a while. But just if you do accidentally power snatch it or power clean it, that's okay. Just write it down, pause at the bottom, make your body go to those positions more often. And then you'll every week that goes by, you'll get more and more comfortable at the bottom.
Awesome. Yeah, I absolutely agree. I've used a ton of pause work with athletes over the years. And I always find that getting them comfortable static in a position is probably the best way to start making improvements. Cool.
Yeah. And what they'll find too is, parallel is like the hardest place in the world to catch, because the hips are so far back from the knees. So people think, oh, it's easier for me to power snatch now. Or then they try to just get their bottom position to be like parallel because it's, let's say more efficient in CrossFit. But, no top weightlifters catch there because it's super unstable. So like by bottom position also, we really mean rock bottom, where you cannot physically sit any lower, because that's where you get stability from. You're kind of pinned down there, and in that is stability, where when you have to keep yourself up another 4 or 5 inches, you bring every ounce of instability into the equation, which we do not want.
All right, Nicole, Brad asked, do you train masters athletes differently than younger athletes?
I mainly just work with our masters athletes, but Tino does a lot of work with our younger athletes. But from the ones who I have coached that are younger, it ends up being pretty similar, because I do a lot of positional work with the Olympic weightlifting, and like what Jared was just saying, a lot of pause work. So I think it's good for all athletes all over, but especially those who are learning, younger athletes who are learning positioning. Keeping the load down and working pauses at different positions with the Olympic lifts. I think that's really, really important. So that goes the same for both masters and younger athletes. And teaching, I think this one's kind of interesting, teaching intensity to younger athletes. They go all out as hard as they can all the time. Generally those who are interested in working out. And so kind of teaching different levels of intensity is really cool, and I think really beneficial for younger athletes. And that goes with masters athletes also, because you will also see them go all out, all intensity in every workout. And that's not always the desired effect. So that goes the same for both younger and masters athletes. Yeah, that's all I can think of right now. Tino, do you want to jump in on that? Because you work with a lot of younger athletes.
I'll jump in too.
Oh, yeah.
I think that it kind of in concert with the last question and answer is that one of the things that we tend to lose quickest is our quick twitch muscle fiber, right? So older, more mature athletes tend to be a little bit slower and emphasize their strength more often. So like that last question, when the weight gets heavy, I tend to go into a power position instead of really focus on the speed of pulling under. That's something that is physiologically explained through the aging process too. And so during that master's program, in that program, we try to make sure that we are doing speed work, maybe a little more speed work than we do in Invictus Athlete competition.
Sure.
So that might mean starting positions from the top, right? So tall snatch, more work from the hang to get athletes used to, really focusing on speed and pulling under. So I would say that that's another difference. And then there's some volume considerations, which Nicole does a nice job of kind of individualizing even within the group of masters. one thing that I think is challenging about masters athletes is there's a big difference between a 35-year-old athlete and a 63-year-old athlete. And I, kudos to Nicole. She does a really good job of helping athletes kind of navigate through that when they're looking at programs.
I think it's also just managing expectations from the get-go and having an understanding that, especially from younger athletes, is that, hey, like, if you want to do this sport for the next 5, 10, 15 years, you have to look after yourself at the beginning and build those foundations. Too many, like, if we look at our sporting careers prior to this, like, we built up a huge foundation of different sports, and a lot of kids who are coming in now are going straight into CrossFit, and it's really high impact. So, like, when I have conversations with the younger athletes and their parents, I'm like, hey, like we're going to take this easy. Like, we're still going to train hard, but the movements are going to look a lot different from what CrossFit is, because we have to make sure that everything's, like, you're strong and healthy, your joints are strong and healthy in order to load. Like, I'm not going to put you under a 1 minute max back squat at 14, 15 years old. Like, I'm going to give you a bunch of tempo work. I'm going to build strength in good positions. I'm going to make sure that your mobility is there. Because you end up, we see it in, I mean, Jared and CJ will tell you, you see it probably in the most similar sport would be weightlifting, where a lot of people don't make it past 16, 17 years old because they've just wrecked themselves before they can even truly expose their true potential, because they've just beat themselves up for so long and their body wasn't ready for it. So that learning stage and having that understanding that foundational strength is really important. And then like the opposite end of the spectrum, like you're having to have masters switch their mindset from being a young thing to be like, let's slow down here a little bit. Let's put a little bit more time under tension. Let's keep you healthy. You're still going to be able to move the loads. Might not be as heavy as the loads, but it's not going to hurt. So yeah, it's kind of like it's just having those conversations and man management.
Yeah, and a lot of tempo work for both groups, young and our masters. A lot of tempo work is across the board in the program.
Yeah. All right, Hunter, I got a question for you. Let me see who asked this. I'll come back to that. But question, which I love because a lot of us are doing at-home training. I'm doing almost exclusively dumbbell and kettlebell work. Can you put on mass and or add strength with nothing other than kettlebells or dumbbells?
Yes, you can technically do it with anything. It might feel a little bit less satisfying or, easy to do without like a barbell, but dumbbells are fantastic. It's just how you lift the dumbbells. So what you're going to want to do if you're going strength or kind of building more muscle mass is slow down a little bit, make the weight heavy. So how you're going to do that, you're probably limited on how much weight you have, maybe 50 or 35 pound dumbbells, and that's not maximal weight for what you can lift. But slowing down the lifts, so making eccentrics, so lower the weight slowly and then press up. If you're doing, presses, then, do 8 to 12 reps of that. But slowing down, really, that's what I'm thinking about is, make the weight feel heavier by being under tension longer. You don't need to do 1,000,000 reps to get there. You just need to actually keep your muscles strained for a little bit longer to where, all of a sudden 50 pounds feels like 150 pounds.
And cookies. You can gain lots of mass with cookies.
That's true. That does help.
I think a lot of people in quarantine are already figuring that one out.
Everyone's on the Max Game program.
All right. Travis, Ileana asked in the Q&A bar, she says, I fell through the rings during ring muscle ups and now I get scared every time I touch the rings. What advice could you give me to overcome this fear? What advice would you give to become confident in this movement again?
Yeah, I read that a little bit earlier and I'm glad that she asked. When people have gone through the muscle up and then had like a traumatizing experience, I just want to break it down into smaller pieces. And one of the reasons why people fall through the rings, and I'm assuming, Ileana, that your hand went like behind you. And so you ended up in like this weird falling forward arm behind you position. That's usually just because you were thinking about pressing down. And when you're pressing down, that's like triceps and pecs. And then the ring just went past and your bicep wasn't engaged, right? So it didn't support the backward movement of the ring. So because of that concept, you put yourself on some low rings, put yourself at the bottom of the catch position, and then just kind of move the ring forward and backward by your ribs. That way you can feel the range of direction between where your hand goes behind your elbow this way, and you can activate by pulling back with your biceps. And that kind of gives your body the idea of, okay, well, I know where I feel that tension. I know how to save it. And also, you know what the parameters are for bailing out of that. So that will help you feel more confident with it. But I would also recommend not doing muscle ups until you feel 100% about that position and jumping up on the rings and just kind of breaking it back down to some simple drills. Because, I mean, if you say it was a long time ago, then you're probably a little bit more mentally messed up about it than necessary because you haven't done any since then. So just go back to like the basics. Put yourself, you know, through some really slow progressions on the low rings, do some jump ups on the high rings. There's other drills where you can, like, you know, kind of do like a false grip, cheated muscle up where it's not as dynamic of a movement, and that'll get you doing the actual muscle up and getting on top of the rings, but slowly building yourself back into that confidence. And then when you're up there, just put yourself in the lower catch position and again, kind of move the rings forward and backward just so you can feel where the boundaries are for you being able to hold that position and also know how to bail.
Awesome. Good answer. All right, let's, Tino, when do you decide whether it's appropriate for an athlete to complete the optional workouts? Would they be considered an addition to the program or a replacement for anything? And this person understands that might be dependent on goals of the athlete.
Yeah, that's completely dependent on what the athlete's goals are and what level they are and how much time. And because like the people who follow the athlete program always think that they have to do double sessions. And for me, the athlete program is a great resource for you to like pick and choose based on your needs and your schedule. And so even for someone who only trains for 60 to 90 minutes per day, like you can get a great session in by adjusting the program based on your needs. So first and foremost, it's what are your goals? It should be the outset of it. So we have a primary session, which I think the majority of people should do. The only part of the primary session I think that people might switch out will be the conditioning. But the primary session, normally like people will do it all. And then additional work is either supplemental and if you have time to do it, or it could be incorporated into the main session if you're going to sub out the like for example the conditioning aspect. So you might hit all the lifts and accessory work, and then you might finish up with some of the aerobic piece or the assault bike option or the rowing option, but you might miss out the primary condition. You might hit the primary session and might miss out the conditioning and add in the strength accessory work because you need to get stronger, and then you still want to maintain your aerobic base. So you might do some sort of aerobic session like the rowing or the running, something longer that's more low impact that's going to assist in building that aerobic base there. So like I said, all depends on your schedule, all depends on your goal. And also, we touched on it earlier, it's like more is not necessarily better. It's making sure that you're applying the program to your needs based on how you feel. But yeah, there's different ways to do it, and that's why we're here to kind of guide you through that, and we have the Athlete Plus option, what allows us to make those decisions for you.
Yep, awesome. Yeah, just to touch on that, the Athlete Plus, if you guys are unaware, it allows you to follow our program, but with a coach overseeing, so that you always have a resource. That coach would make recommendations on which sessions you should be doing, subbing out, you know, some of the primary work for some of the optional work based on your results, and making sure that you're making the most progress you can. All right, Nick, I think this one's going to be right up your alley. Kryn says, I recently read David Goggins' book, Can't Hurt Me. interested in the reaction of any of the panelists that have read it. Alternatively, if none have read it, as Invictus coaches, how do you motivate participants to push beyond what they perceive as their own physical limitations? Nick, correct me if I'm wrong. You actually have read Goggins' book?
Yep, I read it.
I've not. It's on the list, but I haven't got to it. So take this one.
And I think that's a very good book, but I also think you have to take that with a grain of salt. Like sometimes you got to slow down. You have to know the why that you're motivating yourself to go. I think that's the most important thing for any athlete or undertaking any endeavor is what is your actual why? Why are you training? That's normally how you motivate to get through it. Goggins is a huge proponent of just like shut up and go, right? And I don't really like to coach like that because I think there's an awareness, like it's a journey. You're doing this for a reason. What's your reason? And once you figure out what that why is, it's easy to get motivated because that why is what's going to drive you if you actually find your why. Just to like go off somebody else, just suck it up and go, I think that's a little short-sighted. Even though like sometimes that works because you have to get the work in, but it really comes down to like knowing yourself a little bit better, digging a little bit deeper, like what's the why? What are you chasing? What are you trying to accomplish? And that's how you kind of get fired up to do what you want to do.
Yeah, I think we've got the mindset book, which talks a lot about that. So like having your why, having that overarching kind of principle will allow you to kind of push those limitations. And then once you have that why, I think one of the best pieces of advice I've ever got was from Heidi when she talks about, especially at a competitive level where you're in the middle of a workout in a competition, or you might be in an event and you have to tap into that extra gear. And it's like when you feel that pain coming, instead of being scared of it and backing off, it's like push yourself further into it, like be comfortable with it, learn to be comfortable with it. And I think that when you do have those opportunities in training, when you are feeling good, like don't be scared to do it. Don't be scared to go to that dark place. Don't be scared to make mistakes or fail reps, because you're going to learn more from that if you're a competitor than you will from anything else. Because if you're constantly going at like a lower percentage, you're never going to truly reach your capacity there.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll give the quick pitch for Invictus Mindset, and I have not yet read Can't Hurt Me. I think Goggins comes up with a lot of really cool stuff, and there's no doubt the guy is superhuman in his ability to use his mindset. But as Nick said, there's a lot of different ways to motivate, and you got to really figure out what's going to resonate well for you. So I think on the flip side of that would be, making sure that you're doing things for the right reasons, right? There's a lot of people that can push their bodies past their limits, but don't really understand why they're doing it. So for example, Nicole may remember this, Tino may remember this, but I think it was like a 2012 or 2011 regionals, a woman who was in like 18th place, dislocated her shoulder and kept trying to do toes to bar.
Was that in Europe? That was in Europe. Right?
Oh, no, that was in Southern California.
Yes, I remember that.
And it was super, I guess, inspirational and impressive how tough she was. But then, as a coach or maybe somebody that's been doing this a little bit longer, you step back and be like, why was that smart, right? On a much smaller scale, it used to be that tearing your hands in a workout was a badge of honor. But you ask a coach or somebody that's been around, like, if you tear your hands, that means next day's training is messed up. And as a coach, that's the last thing I want. So sometimes there's a place for toughness and sometimes there's a place for reason. Just make sure that you're knowing when to apply the two, because, another example we use a lot in our athlete camps is like we had the first year they had masters, we had one of our gym members go and, the way we train in the gym is if you lose what we call mechanical failure, if you lose your posture on a deadlift, you drop the bar. It's just that easy, right? Well, she was going out in a 1 rep max deadlift competition, and we were going to open her pretty much at her, gym PR. She's like, oh no. I'm like, listen, Helen, if that bar leaves the ground, you finish the lift, right? but we don't train that way, right? So it's just knowing, you know, when to turn that on and when to make sure that you're tempering it so that you're not putting yourself in any danger. Cool. All right, we'll take like 2 more questions, and then I want to, we'll do a quick lightning round to make sure we're respecting everybody's time here. We've been on about just over an hour. Jared, one question came up was, can you jump into Invictus Weightlifting mid-cycle, or do you have to wait till the start of a cycle?
Yeah, you can jump in at any time. We have a 3-day-a-week and a 5-day-a-week program, you know, options for both CrossFitters and weightlifters. But within every cycle, you know, the average cycle might be 10 to 12 weeks long. The current one we are in is 10 weeks. So within that, we have 2 waves. So we have a 5-week wave and then a 5-week wave, and those 2 combined is the cycle, right? So within that, you're going to have 3 weeks of progressions, a deload week, a max out week, you know. So no matter when you join, you know, my biggest thing, you know, the more I've coached, the more I've learned this, and I think it's just getting more experienced in it, is that there's never a perfect time to get started. Like, there's never a perfect time to launch anything. Like, if you just launch, just go, just jump in. Because a lot of times be like, oh, I want to join on the perfect day or in 2 weeks. And eventually it'll all work itself out. So within a cycle, I mean, we're in week 3 or 4, you know, by week 5, the whole thing starts over again, essentially. It's phase 2 of cycle 1. So you'll be completely fine to jump in. This percentages come back down, and then we build back up again with more progression. So yeah, you're fine to jump in at any time. And that's why people ask, even if it's a max out week, I say join. Like, to me, it's like, it's personal finance. Like, if finances were really simple, it's more behavior related than it is actually finance related, right? It's more, you might know what to do, but it's more behavior related. And I find that with adhering to any one of our online programs, it's more the behavior of it, right? Like, if you're interested in Invictus Athlete or Invictus Weightlifting, Invictus Gymnastics, endurance, everything that we offer, like, just get started, jump in, because it's gonna all even itself out anyway. And even if there's only 2 weeks left in the cycle, well, you're 2 weeks early before the next cycle begins, and you're in perfect shape. So I always just say, get started.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Plus, if you're jumping in on a benchmark or PR week, then that's just beat your baseline, and then you're flowing right into the next session. But, you know, in addition to that, in order to get the benefits of the coaching and the community, you probably need to be along with the rest of the group. And so if that means you need to take a couple weeks to work into it, work up to the percentages prescribed, do that, but jump in where it's at. Cool. Good Q&A question here, which is in regards to online programs, specifically competition, but could apply to Masters, Invictus Athlete. Are there built-in deload weeks, or is that dependent on the individual athlete's discretion? Tino, you want to take that?
We like to call them transition weeks more than deload weeks, and because everyone, I'm a true believer that I mentioned it earlier, where the program should be adjusted based on like where you're at and how you're feeling. And that goes week to week, day by day. And so it's important that a lot of people get toward the end of a cycle and it might be their max out week and they feel terrible. I'm like, well, back off this week. That's completely cool. And just go based on that, based on how you're feeling. But we do program in transition weeks, and that gives people an opportunity. Those who are feeling really beat up, I'm like, hey, like, just go have some fun, get out the gym. I don't want to see you post this week. I'll see you at the start of the next cycle. And then some people, on the other hand, like to continue training through there. So it's more fun and challenging workouts, a little bit of variance, throw in some benchmark workouts, whether it be .com or former games workouts. Like, we'll just have fun on those transition weeks. But those transition weeks are the perfect opportunity to reset both physically and mentally. And I think we do that across the board. But like I said, like every week, every training session should be based on how you're feeling. I think like CJ, we wrote an article called Auto-Regulation, where every day, we're fortunate enough that some of the athletes that we have in the gym, so if like Lauren and Raz come into the gym, like CJ and I will have a conversation like, hey, how are you guys feeling today? And then we'll base the program on that. 9 times out of 10, they will not do what's written on the program. And I think that people online, not based on because they don't want to, based on how they're feeling. I've seen CJ chuckling there. But yeah, they like to complain. Sometimes we have to force them into doing stuff. But 9 times out of 10, we'll adjust something based on how they're feeling. We don't have that opportunity with our online community unless like we catch that question early on. So it's really, really important that you make that assessment at the start, and then obviously use those transition weeks as an opportunity to fully reset your body before going into the next cycle.
Perfect. Yeah, the other thing to remember is that we don't program. We program in a way that you're getting a different stimulus, right? And so deload weeks are really necessary, like in powerlifting and sometimes in Olympic weightlifting, where you're hitting the exact same movement, exact same energy systems over and over, and you're building up. You're normally dropping volume and increasing intensity, and you build up, right? But because there's so much variance in CrossFit and we're working on so many different energy systems, our deload weeks look different, right? So we might be following a strength progression that might peak in week 8, right? But so week 9 may not have a ton of weightlifting, but the intensity of the conditioning might be really high, right? So just always know that there's different ways to deload as long as you're creating different stimulus for your body. It doesn't mean that you have to take a week off of doing nothing in order to deload yourself. All right, Travis, Brad asks, can the gymnastics program be done along with your regular training on the same day, or is training that should be done on its own day?
Well, it depends on what your training was for the day, I would have to say, because, if the way that we do the online programming for the gymnastics is essentially like pressing and pulling, right? So if you are doing a bunch of pressing and you planned on doing some sort of pressing work in the gymnastics program, it may not be a benefit to do it in the same day. But if you can find it, clearly if you're following the gymnastics program, it's not one of your strengths. And so you can actually supplement part of the regular training program with the gymnastics program in order to complement that structure. But essentially it is a program that you add to your training as long as the environment is conducive to it. So if you did a bunch of, say, pressing in your regular training, there could be a pull-up session. If your hands are feeling good, absolutely go for it. Just give yourself adequate time to rest in between, and then use it as a supplementary program as it's designed.
Yeah, I think, from our experience just at the gym in San Diego, we encourage a lot of people to follow the gymnastics program in addition to their regular groups. And because you see all the workouts for the week, you can easily just pick what's going to be appropriate for that day. And we have a lot of people that do it as part of their warm-up. So they might get to the gym 30 minutes early. They might do 20 minutes of gymnastics work from Invictus Gymnastics, and then they roll right into their group session. Tends to be a really nice supplement for people. So I would encourage you to use it kind of in the 20-minute blocks. All right, let's try to burn through a couple of quick ones. I'm gonna take one from Adam Toll because he's an OG Team Invictus guy. He was on our team in 2009 when we took 4th place in the first year of team competition.
Hi,
and he now
Adam.
says, as an aging, mature athlete who's lost touch with CrossFit, what can I do to become CrossFit competent again as my body has begun to break down, knees and shoulders? And Jared, he asked more specifically on the other side, which is, how does he ease back into Olympic lifts? So maybe Jared or Nicole, can you say, what are good ways to transition back into the Olympic lifts if you've been out of the game for a little bit?
I'll let Jared take this one.
Yeah, for the Olympic lifts, I think the biggest thing is don't worry about the weight right away. Like I would even, if you've been like completely not training for years, or maybe you've been doing something, but if you haven't been doing the Olympic weight lifts for a few years, I would just use the barbell like for a month, just to get your mobility back, to go to do overhead squats, to do, you might do 10 sets of 3 snatches one day with just the empty bar, holding the start position for 3 seconds, pausing at the knee for 3 seconds, holding the bottom position for 3 seconds, like just taking your time, getting your joints unlocked again, like getting some movement, some blood flow, getting comfortable. I mean, you could, of course, you're an experienced athlete, you, of course, put some weight on there, but I know even for myself personally, I took a ton of time off after the games. And every time I get back into it, I'm like, I want to max out right away. Like my snatch or clean and jerk, it's like something that's just wired in my brain. And then I start lifting and I'm like, no, let me just do like a 10-minute EMOM of 1 snatch rep, just making them perfect. I'm not breathing super hard, maybe just at 185 or 205 for me, or maybe it's 135. The weight really doesn't matter. It's just getting blood flow, getting the joints unlocked again safely, and enjoying it again. Like for me, every time I do that, I know later that day, I'm like, yeah, I'm going to do a 2 a day today. And then later that day, I'm like, yeah, definitely not doing a 2 a day, but at least the hunger is there to come back tomorrow to maybe do the clean and jerk, and get into some squatting in, just getting the joints flowing again.
Awesome. All right. We'll take, let's just take one more of these, and then I'll try to answer some, type them in, and we'll do one personal question to end after this next one. But let's take, I really like Holly Smith's question. She says, I'm a master's athlete who follows Jared's 3-day weightlifting, and I CrossFit 5 to 6 days a week. At what point during my daily training am I just not going to gain strength because my body's maxed out? In other words, if a session's taking me 2 hours, is that too long for it to still be advantageous? Tino or Nicole? Nicole, why don't you take that?
Yeah, honestly, I hate to say this, but it really just depends. And it depends on what you're doing for your workouts, for your CrossFit training during the week. If you're continuing to see progress with your lifts, then and seeing progress with your training, then you're on the right track. If you're not seeing progress, so if you're not gaining strength, if you feel like your body's under recovered, which I'll try and link an article here soon for you guys to see if you're maybe not recovering well. You can do some tests for yourself. But if that's the case, then bring that down. Bring your training down. I don't like to necessarily give time frames for people to be training in, because some people take a long time mobilizing, and so that may put their time to like 2 hours. It depends, what are you doing in those 2 hours? And this goes along a little bit with what Jared said. I want more quality versus quantity. And so you need to look into how your training is affecting your recovery. And if you're not recovering, then you're not going to be progressing in your training, or you're going to hit a wall and either get injured or have no motivation. So make sure that you're able to recover from what your training is, from what you're doing with your training. And if you're feeling beat down, you're not gaining any strength, you're not improving like you used to, then that's telling me you're doing too much.
More is not better. Better is better. And so you want to figure out what's your goal. What are you trying to accomplish? If it's to get strong, then ease up on the CrossFit and the conditioning pieces, and let yourself like get in touch with actually moving a barbell. It's okay to slow down and take that volume down.
For sure.
Which has actually been so true in the this past 8-week strength cycle. We're on the final week right now. And since people are limited to not being able to use a bunch of machines and everything for CrossFit, which we typically recommend, hey, if you're going to do the strength program, focus on strength for 8 weeks. This strength cycle has been way more successful in terms of percentages of PRs for the athletes than we've had in a while, just because they're doing less. Doing less will get you further, and you'll hopefully be a little healthier with recovery, so you can move on to the next thing quicker without having to kind of recover between focusing on different aspects.
I personally don't like giving athletes any longer than 90-minute sessions, and that's including warm-up and cool-down. I just think it becomes counterproductive. I think that they lose focus, and they lose focus on the intention of the workouts. But like I said, you'll have that anomaly who can stay dialed in. But personally, I don't like to give any more than 60 to 90-minute sessions there. And I think Hunter, like you correct in terms of like the volume, and the really cool, I get great pride when I see a progression play out. So like I'll have athletes just now who are coming towards the end of a progression, and they've like they've went from doing double sessions and they've taken off like a back off week, and then we've done retests and they've crushed all their retests. And then I'm like, okay, well, we're still going to take it easy for the next 2 weeks. And they're going in and they're killing their workouts. Like, people don't understand that progressions don't necessarily fit into what they should like be, in essence. Like, you might get your strength gains 3 weeks after the cycle ends because your body's just recovered better. And I think that athletes kind of need to understand that and look at the bigger picture rather than focusing on the kind of short term there. So yeah, make sure that you take those proper rest periods when the program calls for it, and just understand that it's a marathon, not a sprint.
Awesome. All right. Let's do one just more personal question about you guys before we break this thing. So I want you guys to answer, what is the thing, most of us have been doing this for a lot of years now. What is the one thing that still gets you most excited when you go in to coach? Nick, you want to start?
Yeah, I'll start. I love when I see the aha moment in people's faces, like when they connect truly to their body, and actually you can alleviate, like they learn that they can move something a little bit different, or they can activate something a little bit different. They just develop a little bit more connection with themselves. That helps them maybe move through like something that's been painful for them, or like an issue they've had, or something they couldn't figure out. So I really like helping people like figure out more stuff within themselves.
Awesome. Nicole?
I love seeing people transition from, I'm supposed to work out, I'm supposed to do this because, I have X thing that I need to do, to I love to work out, I love doing this, I'm so excited to be here. I love that transition from like this being a chore, something I have to do, to this being something I love and I look forward to doing it.
Awesome. Tino?
Yeah, I'll piggyback on that with Nicole. I think like that's a huge part of it, where like if an athlete's having fun and going in and training hard, they make so much more progress, and seeing that realization is like the best feeling, because like we could be providing an amazing program, but at the end of the day, the program doesn't really matter if the athlete's not truly invested in it and they're not enjoying it. So as soon as they make that, like, hey, like I'm excited to train, like I'm healthy, like they make so much progress. And that for me, like Nicole said, is by far the most the rewarding part. And I remember you telling me at the very, very beginning of when I started coaching, is like, we're here to teach in order for people to go out and apply that to themselves. And it's like, there's nothing better than like seeing one of our athletes like make that realization for themselves and like apply that to their training. And they're the ones that have done it. We've just given them the tools to do that. And I think that's really rewarding.
Awesome. Jared?
Yeah, I think all the coaches have such great answers so far. I wanted to be like, dang it, you're taking my answers. But I think from a weightlifting coach perspective, because that's really, I coach a tiny bit of CrossFit, but really not much. It's mainly just weightlifting. It's when I can get an athlete to understand the concept of the lift is feeling. Like when I can get them to go from being spoon-fed, where they want feedback every single lift, and without that feedback from somebody else, they don't know if they're doing it right. I say, hey, move your feet. And if they do a rep and right as they're standing it up, they're like looking at me for feedback. I'm like, I'm not teaching you much right now, because your body needs to learn, your body needs to feel the movement, because that's when the real progress and the fun comes. Because when you can feel a lift and you feel forward, or you can feel that your hips rose too soon, sometimes I'll just be like, yes, awesome. I don't even care that it was wrong. You're starting to feel it. You're not becoming dependent on a video or on a coach to tell you exactly what it was. And you might not know the answer on how to fix it, but that's fine. Like the feeling of the movement is what I think keeps athletes coming back. They feel the bar float off their hips. They feel a smooth catch. They feel the technical changes happen. And for me, that's my most fun part, is when an athlete goes from being really shy around the lifts, being really tentative in their movement. They don't really know. Every other rep's really different, to all of a sudden they start to take ownership of their feeling of the movement. And then usually they get hooked forever, because that feeling and that mastery of what your body is doing, I think, is addicting, and why so many people come to weightlifting and stay for a long time.
Sorry, Hunter.
Yeah, so for me, I love knowing people's goals, because what their goal is, I get to, thanks Kirsten, what their goal is, I get to be a part of that. And like Tino says, I'm there to assist. So I love when I hear, a guy say, hey, I want to snatch 200 pounds, or someone say, I want to get a bar muscle up, because especially if it's in the programming that day, it's an opportunity for me to be a part of that journey with them and watch them work for something and accomplish it on whatever level it is. If it's just, hey, I want, abs, so I want to lose 10 pounds. But like, hey, today we have good cardio that we're doing. I get to, be a part of their workout, watch them work for it, maybe ask them about how their diet's been that day. So just kind of across the board, making someone else's goals my own goals, now that coaching has been the priority for the past couple of years, has been really exciting for me.
Awesome. Trav?
Yeah, I kind of have two favorite things, and it's because I coach online, but they're complete opposites. Is one, watching somebody feel comfortable with posting their failures online. I think that's one of the biggest things that I find joy in, not because they're failing, but because they actually put themselves out there for everybody to see. Because I feel like with gymnastics, they feel like, if it's going well, then they don't mind showing it. But it's when they're failing that I can help them the most. And that, for me, is when I start seeing people succeed even faster and faster. And, because I'm on Jared's feed loop too, I see everybody posting like missed lifts and things like that, but people don't post so many missed gymnastics movements. They post PRs. And of course, I'm happy to see that. But I want to be able to help. And when somebody is like, okay, you know what? I'm just going to throw it out there and see what happens. And that's when I get to reach out and show them that it's not scary to fail, and failing creates an environment for people to learn best, then help them from there. And then everybody else gets to watch them progress and go. And then the opposite is when they do get that PR, they didn't think that they could get on top of the rings. They didn't think that they could get on top of the bar for the bar muscle up. They didn't think that they could string 10 toast bar in a row. Just a look on their face, and they, there's usually a celebratory scream or something like that. That is an amazing feeling as a coach, to watch them get that, because it just opens up their mind. They didn't realize how close they were, and then all of a sudden they just let it go, and it happened, and their mind is completely blown. And I feel it for them. It's so cool.
Awesome. I'll go last. I've had the good fortune to work with some incredible athletes who have finished on top of the podium at the CrossFit Games, both teams, individuals. But for me, the thing that keeps me coming back is watching somebody's psychology change. And normally, kind of along the lines of what Jared was talking about, normally it's improved confidence. And so one of my favorite moments, and it may seem small because we've had some incredible moments, but to have a client that I worked with for kind of body composition and weight loss, and she was able to put her wedding ring back on after more than 10 years of not being able to wear it because she had gained too much weight. And that little step, right, changes who she is and her psychology, and it makes her more confident in everything she does in her life. And so that was, 10 years ago now. And that still, to me, stands out as one of the best moments in coaching for me. So I think anytime we can help improve somebody's confidence and the way that they interact with humans outside of the gym, that's why I do this. So guys, thank you so much for being on. Sorry we ran an hour and a half here. I'll get you guys all out of here so you can enjoy your day. I'm sure it was very busy with lots of things going on while sitting around the house. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thanks.
Later, guys.
So yeah.
Thank you, everybody.